Hey there, Around the Layout listeners. With advanced previews of upcoming episodes and monthly giveaways, now's the time to become an Operating Crew member. For just $3 a month, you'll get an exclusive membership sticker, your name listed on the Operating Crew roster, and automatic entry into our monthly giveaway drawings. Just as important, your financial support keeps all of our episodes from behind paywalls and free of those annoying car insurance commercials you hear on other podcasts. Joining the Operating Crew is quick and easy. Head to patreon.com/Around the Layout podcast. And if you missed that, you'll find a link on our website, aroundthelayout.com. And thank you for being a listener. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott. So glad you could join us. It's time once again to find out what's happening in model railroading. And to do that, joining me as always, the editor of Model Railroad News, Tony Cook. Tony.
Hey, Ray, how you doing?
It's great to see you again, my friend.
I can't believe it. We're actually here at the What's Happening in Model Railroading again. The time is just flying. I can't believe it.
Well, it's clicking by, and I think, we also got to see each other midterm. We did that interview with Lucy Dormont from the NMRA, and boy, she's just knocking out a whole lot of social media content for them, and that was a really fun interview to do with her.
That was a very good show, and I have seen some of the, she hinted, kind of let us know about some of the rebranding things, and as you've probably seen on social media in the last week, I've seen some examples of some of the new NMRA kind of branding that they're looking at.
It's definitely good to see a fresh look to the NMRA and a new outlook. So really cool to see that, and great to catch with her. And now we've got to meet a new person. So why don't you tell me who you brought along today, Tony?
This is the absolute answer to one of the hobby's always perplexing predicaments. I don't have room for a model layout.
Right.
How many times do you hear that story of, oh, I'd love to, but where would I put it? Or, okay, this is the answer. This guy has the answer. It's 220 times smaller than real life. Z-scale. How about that? What do you know on Z-scale, Ray?
I know that it's small. I know I've seen it around, but very limited. But I'm sure it's a world that exists out there that I don't know about, but I'm excited to find out about. That's for sure.
There is so much stuff, and we have the man behind Z-scale. Rob Kluz is here with us today from, there's Ztrack Magazine, there's AZL American Z-scale. So let's bring him on in and let's discover this world that I can actually have a model layout no matter how little room I think I have.
Yeah, let's do it. Ron Kluz, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ray. Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me today.
Great to have you here, Rob. And yeah, we're really excited to learn about this. Tony sent me the links, and I've been scrolling through, and boy, there's a whole other world I'm just not aware about at all when it comes to Z-scale.
Yeah, I think Z-scale is one of the most overlooked scales, and that's just because it's so small. It's easy to overlook it. We are seeing today with Z-scale a whole new world, and it's been really a channel growth. We see it as one of the fastest growing segments of the hobby. We are being able to see more people getting involved. We're seeing more interest into it. As Tony mentioned, a lot of it's, if you get those space constraints, it's ideal. And, but frankly, if you have a lot of space, it could be ideal as well. So it's really interesting time. We see, a lot of people are downsizing their houses, but they still want to keep up with their model trains. We're really hitting that segment, but we're also hitting them with products that are just phenomenal and unbelievable in quality and detail. One of the things I often hear is very frequently is, I can't believe that Z-scale. It's kind of cool.
I agree that the two things when I have told people or somebody asked me and I said, number one is the amount of product available. That the tooling that AZL has done in I don't know how many years, but when I look at the list of locomotives, there are things I forget about. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot they did that. And again, the quality. It's unbelievable. I look at it and again think there's no way that's Z-scale. I mean, it's what's available and how good it looks and all the new stuff coming out. I mean, they single-handedly are pedaling fast to bring a lot of stuff into this category of the hobby.
Yeah, I think that goes back to a lot of philosophy. So, when we first saw Z, it came out in 1972, and Markland out of Germany was the one who brought this scale out there. And for them, of course, heavy German prototypes, the image of a 060 and a walnut shell is what kind of drove the hobby, the briefcases and things. And it wasn't until around 1985 we started seeing some growth, with the U.S. market and Microtrains taking over line from a gentleman named Nelson Gray. They brought our F7s and cars, and of course, Microtrains is still doing some amazing, fantastic products today. But where we've shifted is when we start talking about AZL or the products that this company does. So give you some background. My company Ztrack is actually the distributor for American Z Line. So I'm fortunate enough that I have all their products sitting right here behind me, and there's way too many that I want to talk about. But we saw a kind of an interesting approach to Z-Scale from the owners of AZL, Hans Ritterwald and Rob Albright. We've been doing trains with AZL since 2000. They started out as a brass company. And what was really interesting is that belief and trying to create prototype specific models in Z-Scale and brass has carried forward to their injection line. And so today modelers are looking at products that have all the bells, horns, and whistles literally in the correct placement on a Z-Scale engine. That is something that's just phenomenal. And again, we're talking a lot about the different products and everything. I can give you some overviews if you're interested, just everything we have available right now.
Yeah, let's hear about it. And so I'm definitely interested in hearing about, obviously Ztrack and, what your role is, but tell us about the history of you getting involved with Z-Scale.
Yeah, let's start there. So I'm an early adopter. I got to start in 1985, and it was interesting because when you get involved that early, you're excited to get into the hobby. I came into it a very different way. I was a military modeler, and I thought, I was doing a war gaming table, and I thought, man, it would be neat to have some like a German troop train on my World War II, layout. And just so happened that year I went to Germany, discovered this company Markland, and saw these amazing trains and European prototype, of course. Bought my first starter set and literally never did military modeling ever again.
Wow.
I got to tell you, it was addicting. And then I got the reality when I came back to the States, there just wasn't any information. We weren't seeing anything on Z-Scale. Hobby shops had it, but it was pretty expensive. There wasn't any literature or anything. And that kind of brought me into the world I am today because I started writing a little bit. I joined what Markland had a magazine called Hot Tracks back in the early days, and I started doing some articles for them. That led me to a guy out of New York, Adam Skull, who created this little newsletter called Ztrack. And this has been around the late 80s. And I was feeding him content, and we did our first national train show in Pittsburgh back in, I think it was 1991. And that really started saying, I got to do more for the hobby. So we started beefing up Ztrack, and through a series of events, I actually took over Ztrack in 1997 and turned that from a newsletter into a magazine. Our approach back then, which continues today, is we need Z-Scale to be bigger than it is. And what I mean by that is we wanted the magazine to be the backbone for Z-Scale, to show people what's out there, what can you do, show the layouts. We weren't getting the press in the major magazines, and I understand why. We weren't a big enough niche in the hobby. So that led me into just pushing Ztrack, getting it out there, trying to bring in the subscribers, doing it. And then it was an interesting journey because we took Ztrack and then we started looking at the opportunities. So when we look back at how I got involved with AZL, AZL is the iteration of a third attempt at a company. There was a company called Small Scale Works that didn't make it. Rogue Locomotive Works followed that, and it didn't make it. And AZL was a culmination of those failures. Going back to talking about brass, they were a brass manufacturer. And they had asked me, Hans Ritterwald at that time was the sole owner, asked me, he said, Rob, I need help distributing these products. I'm sitting on all this brass, and I don't have a way to sell it. Well, we just couldn't find a distributor. We couldn't find anybody that would touch that line with a 10-foot pole. So I backed it and started selling AZL trains through Ztrack, and then started building up a small dealer network. And then as the interest in things grew, we started going further and further into more prototypes. What's the hobby want? We're starting to see more growth in the U.S. market. And that line from 2002 we see today has evolved from brass into injection and the products that you see today. My company continues to evolve because looking at every opportunity, we also looked at opportunities to do more retail, We're looking at the abilities to fill spaces. I'm developing my own product lines under the Ztrack name. We also create a resale shop to help people who wanted to be able to sell Z and in a safe manner. So it's an interesting evolution of let's write a few articles to share some information to let's become a wholesale distribution company with global reach and handling, customers around the world. It was quite a transition. It's not necessarily where I thought I would be when I started all this in 1985. That's for sure.
You never know where the hobby's going to lead you. I mean, wow, how about that, Ray? This literally went from a German train for his military setup to he's the guy behind Zscale in North America. That's crazy, isn't it?
It's funny that it was like a secondary thing for him and then became his primary, not only hobby, but now business and everything else. That's a really neat way to get into the hobby for sure.
Yeah. I love hearing how folks get into it. And a lot of it can go back and say at this moment is when I saw it. The first time I saw Zscale was in Smithsonian Magazine. If any of you still subscribe to Smithsonian. And then Marklin was writing ads from back in around 1985 too. So that's where I had my really kind of first glimpse on it before I even went to Germany. If you start, and I started realizing Z was out there, we just didn't know it. Like movies like, Big and other movies actually had some Zscale, and the Christmas Vacation has Zscale, set running into it. So Z was out there back then. It just people weren't realizing what they were seeing in those movies and shows. So
some background on the Z products. I mean, you've just in general, it applies the same for any model railroading scale. Powered locomotives, rolling stock, but give us a little idea of what is that general setup, because I know the questions are there on digital control, what kind of couplers does it use? I know from covering your products over the years that I kind of have an understanding of that, but for somebody that just knows, yes, they're small trains, kind of give us what's the general makeup of like one of the AZL locomotives, what would you be getting into to get started in Z?
Sure. Let's just kind of go with the overview of the product. So AZL's locomotives today, they use their own proprietary, CAN motor, cordless motor, about 7.5 millimeters wide. It's rated up to 12 volts, dual flywheels, just an exceptional motor in this. One of the things that we've done, and by developing our motor instead of looking for something off the market, is one reason we can actually do hood units to scale and Z scale. That was kind of a challenge for us for a while, is being able to get those narrow bodies actually done correctly, and we managed to be able to do that. One of the neat pieces is, of course, directional control LED lighting. We use a standard PCB board, so the majority of products use a standard PCB. So if you are interested in DCC, Digitrax and TCS both offer drop-in decoders. And what we mean by that is you literally pull the PCB out of our engine, you slide in the Digitrax or TCS board, no wiring, no soldering, no taping. It just pops in, done. Now your engine's DCC is ready to go. Everything is self-lubricating. There's no brushes, nothing you got to clean. I mean, you just really keep cleaning the wheels, but nothing you're going to have to really maintain on these engines. It's really a pretty simple but yet solid design. Couplers is the one thing, and we'll talk about couplers. I think that's one of the areas of Z that is still a little bit in flux. So obviously, microtrains that are mag-to-mag couplers, have been industry standard. So if you want to do those operations, obviously you're going to have to rely on the microtrains couplers. AZL developed their own coupler, and their approach now can be used with microtrains. So no problem there, mixing and matching. AZL's approach was, we want to be able to pull long trains. And I know this sounds crazy because we talk a lot about Z and how small it is and being able to do small layouts. But we are also having guys who are filling basements with Z scale, or clubs that are going to shows who want to run 100, 200 car trains. And it's happening today. And AZL created a more robust coupler to be able to handle those kind of operations. It doesn't uncouple, put it that way. It's a good looking coupler, and it works. It also works with, there's another coupler on the market from a company called Full Throttle. They actually work with Bowser, and they call them the Bowser bucklers, or that coupler. And that's another US style coupler that works with AZL and microtrains. So if you are getting to Z today, products from Full Throttle, American Z Lines, microtrains can be used, mixed and matched and used together. It is only the microtrains that have the magnetic uncoupling. One little interesting piece I'll share with everyone here as we're talking is, One of the new items that AZL released in last year was SW1500 switchers. And I mean, I can't even go into how detailed and how unbelievable these were. This was a challenge for AZL to be able to do this. One of the really neat pieces that they did was thinking through that, hey, I've got a switcher, I got to uncouple, but my coupler doesn't do that. We include in every package a very special little adapter piece that we developed in-house that slips up into the shell. You unscrew the AZL coupler, you put this little adapter in, and a standard Microtrains 905 coupler box just screws right into it, and now you have your magnetic uncoupling. Great design. That's kind of forethought that we're thinking about, is how do we make sure to meet that demand and do those kind of neat things for our customer base.
I was going to ask on that because, the couplers, I remember when I write up the stuff, there's always that extra coupler or a different, compatible something is in there as well, and was going to ask what the deal was on that.
Sure. So another approach that we take with our products is, you've heard me mention prototype and being able to do more prototype specific detailing. One of the really neat things that AZL has done is, obviously with our truck mounted couplers, you're going to have better operations. Your swing, your ability to pull freight cars. What we see is sometimes that customer wants that pilot or that plow that's in the front of the engine. So what we've designed is, it's kind of neat, is the engines will come with couplers already mounted onto the trucks. Inside the packaging, you're going to find a secondary truck that has no couplers on it. It's a completely different design, does not have a coupler attached to it, and you'll find a bag of parts. That bag is your pilot, your plow. It has, quote, a static coupler on it just for looks, but a customer can take that engine, be able to put in that pilot plow to improve the look of the leading locomotive. Conversely, if we start talking about our E units, like our E8s, our PAs, our F7s, we actually include the reverse in those. So those come with a beautiful pilot on the front of it with a static coupler on it. We include a truck with a coupler mounted in the packaging. So if you want to do an ABA configuration, that trailing A will be able to couple to your passenger cars or your freight cars. So again, great consideration is, how do we make sure we match real operations and be able to pull trains with it? So it's kind of a neat design that AZL's done.
I'm just amazed by the amount of offerings that are available in Z scale. I mean, again, this is me learning about Z and just really amazed. But what has amazed you from, say, 1985 to today in the development of Z scale?
It's the technology. It's just the fact that we can come out with a locomotive in Z, be able to do a realistic run. We have to be honest. I mean, Z is not the size of N or HO and customer base, so our runs have to be small. Mm-hmm. But yet we can use technology, be able to create tooling and molds that can create different slides, which create different packages of cab details and cab shapes. When I look at how that technology changed, where when I started in 85, it was the one glove fits all. We had an F7, and it was the F7 with two horns on the top, and everything was exactly the same. And there you go. Now we have F7s with different figurations and horns and horn types. And then we start looking into really shines, and we start seeing our SD40s and things. You start looking at these models and you start going, how the heck did they do that in Z? And another thing I hear often is, how come I don't have that in N or HO? So, I think that's one of the things, again, I've been really impressed is the growth of Z really kind of followed the growth of technology. And I'm going to give a big props here. I am a huge fan of Microtrain's new cars with the prototypical weathering and basically the photographs printed cars. Those cars are stunning to me. To put those on a layout and they're, again, basically taking real photographs, putting them on car size. That's something we would have never dreamt about so many years ago. That's, again, where technology is driving it to give us more prototype specific options and make things more realistic. Actually, kind of a good segue here too. I think there's one other part of Z that we should mention that it was just interesting. There's no compression in Z scale. So I think I mention that a lot when I talk about Z, and I'm trying to share why Z is special. You look at HO, you look at N, a lot of times products they're a little bit shortened. They may be scaled down to make radius curves, to make them work better in other scales. Z, we don't do that. We don't reduce anything. Any product you buy from us is true to scale. And I'll tell you, it's sometimes a learning curve. We've had customers tell us our engines are too big because they're not used to seeing a scale engine. I remember when Markland came out with a GG1 and customers were refusing to buy it because they were convinced it was too long. I'm like, no, that's what the real engine's like in life. It's a true scale model. So that's another really cool aspect about Z. If you're truly into scale models, that's what we're all about as well.
And how about track? We haven't. I don't think there's. I mean, for somebody starting, you a lot of times you're looking for like a roadbed track system or flex track, section track. Again, kind of for the complete novice on that. What do you run Z scale trains on?
Another good one. So here, this is another good history for Z. It originally was Markland. So Markland came out with the Z-scale line, of course, back in 72, and they stayed with it. Now, that does not have roadbed, but they created the dimensions, the whole line, the sectional track. They really created the standard. We saw around 2005, Microtrains dipped their toe into it with ballasted roadbed track. Now, it's a limited line. They have some turnouts and track. It is more limited. Really what we saw that kind of really made Z explode was about 10 or so years ago. It's a company called Rokuhan out of Japan. We're actually their representative here in the United States, so it's easy for us to talk about this line. They came in with the approach of, we want to do more truly like a Kato type of line with the roadbed, but the options that they now present is unbelievable. They didn't just say, okay, we're going to duplicate Markland's line that had a lot of different options. They said, we're going to take it further. We're talking, in Z, its standard radius was about 195 to 220 millimeters. And so you're talking about, about 20 inches or so. We're blowing that out now, 245 and 275 millimeter radiuses. So about, you're talking 24 inches across, as flat, as just sectional track. You're talking now that we've got, of course, turnouts and smaller turnouts and double slip switches and 90-degree crossings. And all in the system is just plug and play. I got to tell you, my recommendation of anybody looking to get into Z-scale is start with an American Z-Lines train and start with a Rokuhan track line. And of course, that's what we offer too. So it's easy for me to say that as well. But the reason I say this is we have to be honest about Z. It is small. It is not necessarily a scale for everyone. I'm going to be very frank about that. There are tolerances there that are sometimes a challenge. And part of that before the Rokuhan line was a lot about what I was doing, was educating people of how do you deal with those tolerances? How do you make sure your track's connected properly? How do you make sure you have good electrical contact? Those are kind of things that would frustrate people. Their engines wouldn't run so well when they started. Fast forward 20 plus years, I have a rock solid track line, amazing turnouts, amazing engines. You literally put them on the track and they just go. The only thing I tell folks today is keep your track clean. That's it. Keep your track clean. Keep your wheels clean. Don't use track erasers. I know, we're getting a little detail here, but soft cloth, some rubbing alcohol, clean the top of your rails. You're done, and your trains will run phenomenal for the here on out. So,
wow.
Yeah, that is, I guess another secret is it's just been so amazing to have such a solid platform. Now, again, if you're saying to me, hey, you know what? I'm not into the roadbed. I want to do my own. Atlas makes the most incredible flex track for Z-scale. So they have, and their own turnouts, very traditional, Atlas line. Best flex track on the market. So there you go. So if you want to do your own, definitely go, just look at Atlas, and their stuff is amazing.
I see. It's all very straightforward. Now that I look at it, again, as you're looking at these things, you wonder, like you knew the Markland background. So you start wondering, well, is it a special kind of track? Is it not, that typical DC standard and all that? But it's amazing, how similar it all is. And I love the stuff, the Rokuhan you talked about. And I know you're talking about scale proportions, but one of my favorite things, and I think you sell those as well, I've got a set of those little shorty F units that they make are so cool that I've got an A-B set, I think, of those in Santa Fe, and then I'm running in Model Railroad News, the new Southern and Rio Grande. So, which, I don't know, there's just something so neat about that, and it's such a Japanese thing too. Rokuhan's, Japanese company, and that like compressed down little F units those are so cool. That's a really fun product.
Well, that was another game changer for us, because for me, I have been pushing the prototypes. We want it to be real. We want to be scale. We want to talk about, the modern engines of today, the big diesels. And then also in Rokan goes, hey, let's come out with a little toy type trade, something you can get started for like $45. You're like with the track and a battery controller. It's so small. I mean, you talk about like an 8.5, 11 sheet of paper and smaller. You can put a loop of track on that and have a train running. And to your point, we have a Santa Fe shell, a Southern shell, or we just Rio Grande coming out now, and then a New York Central. They're these little scaled down probably about 2/3 size, maybe even less F7s, and they're mesmerizing to watch. To be frank with you, they're just kind of cool because they're just so tiny, and these guys are. It's a great way to get started in a hobby and just have some fun without maybe a larger investment, but it's just for fun. And I really have that line has been doing very well. And I know we're pushing Rokan to do some more. We're hoping to see some more U.S. prototypes. I know they're pushing me for some suggestions, and I'm trying to come back with some ideas as well. So we know that line is going to continue to develop here for the U.S. market.
It's so much neat stuff. We've barely gotten into it, but I know we're running about the end of our time here, Rob. For those listening, give us the AZL site. Talk to us about where we can go find Ztrack Magazine. I know it's available print and digital, so you could be reading it the minute you finish this podcast. You can go, I think, and get a digital issue. So give us that information so folks can start investigating on their own.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'll get you started at our main website, which is ztrack.com, ztrack.com. Really simple. That's our magazine website, but you're going to find links to our other websites out there. If you're really looking at American Z-Line and really want to see a wealth of products, we didn't even touch on all the options that there are today. Go to their main site, AmericanZline.com. That is their backbone site showing all their products, including historical products. They have a direct retail site called AZLDirect.com, where you can also purchase their products. And then I'll give you one more of our sites. It's called ZTrackCenter.com. And that is our retail site. You will see a wealth of products from a number of manufacturers that you probably didn't even know existed. So, and a lot of options on kits, and of course our whole track line that we offer and accessories. I mean, there's thousands of Z-Scale products that we offer, which is crazy when you think about it. There's a lot out there.
I spent the last few minutes browsing on AmericanZline.com, and I went up to the locomotive section, and I expected to see maybe a couple different model offerings, but no, Tony, 24 different locomotive offerings available.
Yes.
Just absolutely amazed at what's available in Z.
And, as he says, that's, that's like the full line of stuff they've done, but the stuff is always coming back. There's always seems to be new road names. I usually get, what is it, Rob? We get about 2 sets of releases a month, I think.
Yep. We do 2 releases a month, sometimes 3. And just to give you guys a little heads up, we are getting ready to hopefully here by the end of this year. So, end of 2023, one of the most demanded products that we get requests for SD40-2s and then SD40T2s. We're going to be coming out those. Those are well in production. We already have our paint samples. So we're going to be coming out those at the end of the year. So we are pretty excited to be able to start releasing those. We've also announced for next year SD50s, SD60s. I'll give you guys a quick little glance of what's coming. As well in 2024, we're looking at 2025, a GS4, Southern Pacific GS4, and the full daylight train and injection. So, I mean, this is, we're moving to, I mean, Tony,
Wow.
We've got some stuff lined up. I'm telling you, it's from passenger to freight, modern. I mean, we're all over it.
And looking at your Z-Track, the Z-Track Center where you sell the stuff, for those wondering, okay, I think the starter set is probably one of the biggest questions. Mm-hmm. There's a handful of them. I'm looking at one that's got a BNSF GP38, and then it's got a coil car, a center flow hopper, and like a big 60-foot insulated box car. Comes with, it looks like a loop of track and a controller, so it truly is everything you need, and a little more than $200.
Yep, absolutely. Nice. And it's a phenomenal price. So about $200 price, but we try to keep those starter sets around the 200 range and the 200s. But again, loop of track, Rokan track, controller, battery controller, you can upgrade it with an adapter to run off the wall, so you don't have to use the batteries. We always try to include an engine, 3 cars with it. And I'll give your listeners a little secret. If you don't see a starter set out there that maybe your favorite road name and you want it, if you contact me, I'll do some custom starter sets for you. So I always like to share that because we love helping people out, and we can't do everything, but sometimes you say, hey, Rob, I really like this, Sue line or this. Hey, let me know and we can work something out for you.
Well, that's awesome. And a great way to get people in and interested is always to be something that they can relate to or they like, with a road name. So that's really awesome you're doing that. Boy, did I get a good education on Z-Scale, Tony. That's absolutely amazing.
And he's only touched upon this stuff. Again, one of the reasons I wanted to have Rob on the show is I've covered this for years in Model Railroad News, and it always seems so intriguing. It's so exciting. And when I see it for real, it's wow. I know I reviewed an F unit a couple of years ago and was so amazed with it, I ended up taking it completely apart. My assistant editor he says, hey, I want to see that when you're done with it. And I basically handed him back the jewel case, the shell. I had taken the motor, the drive, everything out. He said, what did you do? I said, I couldn't believe how well it ran and how neat it was. And I started taking it apart, but I didn't have time to put it back together. So there you go. You can look at it now, but you're going to have to reassemble it.
I can't believe you took something out, let alone out of the package. You took it apart. That's amazing.
I did. Yeah. No, it's very cool. Yeah. It's just amazing stuff. I mean, I continue to be impressed. And as I say, I feel like Rob he's the guy between the Ztrack Magazine and this scale is what it is today because of this gentleman we're talking to.
So, Rob, I want to thank you for coming by and giving us an update on all the things you got going with Ztrack and the magazine and AZL Direct. It was a pleasure meeting you, and thanks again for giving us that education.
Great, Tony. I really appreciated the time, and glad we got to talk today. Thank you.
Well, Tony, that was quite an education on Z-Scale. I'm really amazed at what not only they're doing in Z-Scale, but what Rob has been able to do as well.
I mean, that's an absolute success story and shows you how the hobby can be so many things to so many people that I feel like this guy really has spearheaded Z-Scale in the North American market. I mean, he's the editor of Ztrack Magazine, involved with the American Z-Line stuff that, man, you talk about, hey, this is my thing and I want to see it succeed. He's done it. I mean, it is fascinating stuff. And again, always something new. I think my editorial in December's Model Railroad News, we just did a show recently with Ken Bianco Jr. on Train World. He invited me on for that international show, and we had several European companies. And as they were showing their product lines and other things, again, it's like, wow, here's even more model railroad stuff that I wasn't that familiar with. So there's so much out there. I mean, it's a never ending thing, part of the fun of the hobby.
Yeah. There are thousands of points of entry into this hobby, including that. So very cool to learn about that. And now it's time to learn about what's happening in model railroading with some news. So Tony, what do you got for us?
We got a handful of new things, a lot of freight cars, I think, this month that I wanted to highlight. I think back in August or right after the NMRA show, Tangent Scale Models brought out that neat Pullman Standard Southern Pacific prototype for that 40-foot sliding door boxcar. And when they did, I was excited about it. I did pick one up, and I got a sample sent to me for review. But the car I was really interested in is they rebuilt those and put a wide 10-foot door, and I'm sure you've seen them with that big yellow diagonal stripe on those brown SP boxcars. That just got announced. The Sacramento shops rebuilt 40-foot boxcar is now part of Tangent's line, and you can get that with running boards on the roof. I guess the rebuilding process was such that it got in just in time before that came off, and then there are modernized versions with the running boards off of them. But boy, there's something, I don't know why, but that yellow diagonal stripe on the side is such a signature classic SP car, and it's neat to see such a finely done HO replica of that.
Yeah, I wondered what that stripe was. That to indicate a 10-foot door or what? Because I don't remember seeing that on any other Southern Pacific cars.
Yeah, and I know it does mean something. And I'm sure people listening, I can't. Yeah, I haven't started in on the review and news stuff on it yet, but as I do remember, because there was a kit announced for it more than a decade ago that never came to market. And at the time, I remember looking into that, and the diagonal does it. I think it means something, either some kind of what this is for loading this, or the door or something. But we will find that out, and you will read about it.
All right.
But I don't have it at the tip of my tongue here. Then the other thing, tangent again, they've done some fantastic caboose models. The International Car, the Ohio-based company that built basically all the big wide vision, extended vision cabooses, Tangent has basically the Hill Roads, Northern Pacific, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle. Would be 1960s versions of them, and then Burlington Northern from early days in 1970 into the early 80s, where they're patching over windows and the tall ladders and the roof walks and things are coming off them. A whole series of International Car wide vision cabooses have just come out from Tangent. The one I picked up from, I think I got it from Lombard Hobbies in Chicago, was the Northern Pacific. And then my reviewer, Ryan Crawford, is doing an early 80s Burlington Northern that Tangent sent us for review in Model Railroad News. But just again, the caboose models, their freight cars are so fantastic. And then when they do these cabooses, I think that they're just eye-popping. And I love that green with the yellow striped Northern Pacific paint scheme. And as I say, that's the one I picked up for that.
Yeah, Tony, I'm looking at them on page 18 of the most recent issue of Model Railroad News. And boy, they're really sharp looking cabooses.
The wide vision caboose, it's interesting. The first wide vision cabooses that International Car did actually went to the Duluth, Mesabi, and Iron Range in 52, 53 were the years. So they're older prototypes than you would think. So that makes them 70 years old this year, I guess. Is that right? Yeah. And then the Athearn model, which a lot of people remember, the Athearn Blue Box is an International wide vision prototype. It came out in 73, so it's 50 years old. And at the same time, there was a handful of other companies that all came to market in HO with plastic wide vision cabooses. And I've got that in December's Railroad Model Craftsman Collector Consist. I do the invasion of the wide visions for the 50th anniversary of that Athearn caboose coming out. And speaking of Athearn has basically the similar International wide vision in the Genesis line that they've announced a group of those back to like that really pretty silver with the red band, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy and others. So if you don't find the road name you're looking for in the Tangent group, check Athearn's website and you'll see there's Genesis Internationals that are very similar prototype.
Yeah, these Athearn cabooses are also really nice and also have the option of adding Tsunami sound car sound to them as well. Really neat that what they're doing beyond the locomotives to add that realism to a layout.
It absolutely is. And I know the Tangent car is lighted and comes with a wand, and it's in marker lights you can turn on and off for the red blink and the interior. But yeah, the lighting, the effects, the technology, as we were just talking about with how that's really propelled Z-Scale. We see it in every scale, and these cabooses are a great example of all the stuff that's in them that they do, that it's not just a freight car.
Right.
And then Athearn has got two new extended height, the classic Berwick bathtub gondolas. This has been done before in HO scale. I believe it's model die casting roundhouse heritage tooling, but they're bringing it back with enhancements. Then for N scale, it's the first time this model will be available. And again, these are the regular height. The Berwick bathtub gons were coal hoppers. Late 70s is mid to late 70s is kind of when they come in as the standard, whereas today, it's the aluminum hoppers you see on unit coal trains. The bathtubs were all over the place by the mid to late 70s. And they do have some road names going back to that, like there's a Union Pacific with the yellow band on the side for the rotary dumping. And then I guess second, third hand, maybe even two usage, they put an extender on the top because you still see these cars around. They may be like ties or junk or other thing carried in them. And since the density on that's different, they can make it a little taller and still be at or under the 100-ton mark. So these new extended height bathtub gonds are new in both HO and N scale.
I've definitely seen these CWPM gonds with the extended sides and that JAMX road name, hauling residential trash around. So CWPM being a big trash hauler, especially up here in the Northeast. I don't know if they're a national company or not, but a lot of these on the roads up here in the Northeast.
Definitely I know you always have your camera with me because you send me some of your Railfan pics, but yeah, be on the lookout for those because I'm looking for prototype pictures to go with that when we get to reviewing them. But yeah, definitely keep that in mind.
Oh yeah.
Neat cars. And again, they span eras from, mid to late 70s to contemporary times with that. And that's Athearn in both HO and N scale. So though, hey, are they going to make it? Yeah, they are. That both styles are coming in both scales. In scale, the next one I have, Craig at Bluford Shops has a new run of his 14-panel 3-bay hoppers that he just announced. Bluford Shops, if you've not bought any of their in-scale product before, and I'm sure if you're an in-scaler, you know them. They've done cabooses. In fact, they've done that caboose in HO as well. They've got little 2-bay hoppers. They've got the big high cube, the 85-foot high cube cars. I love all of Craig's stuff. I usually always see him at the St. Louis RPM at least once a year and email with him throughout the year on different products. But one of the things I wanted to point out, in addition to this new group of stuff, go to his website, the BlufordShops.com, and look down at the bottom. I think it's on the bottom left. He has got like an information or reference section that's loaded with neat information. So if you've got freight car questions or other things, he shares a lot of that knowledge that he's had of just personal interest and the stuff he's done for his business. And if you go to that website, you'll see it. And that's a good source just to kind of click and look at things. But go to the site and take a look at his reference material. That I think you'll find some fun, fascinating stuff there.
I noticed this when we were talking about Tangent and the information that they share, and Bluford Shops has done nearly the same here with this, what they're calling the Railroad History Timeline.
Yes, that's it.
And it's super. I mean, this is, oh boy, this might be my afternoon, Tony.
It's a very neat site, yes. There's a new run of Hornby America, has Rivarossi is one of their brands, the classic Italian maker that has been in the hobby for decades. But this is a recently tooled car. This is their 50-foot box car. It, in general, looks kind of like a General American-ish 50-foot RBL. And they also do a sliding door version, so plug and slider. Just your typical 50-foot box car. What's nice about it is the retail hovers right around $30. And the paintwork and the variations on them for that price, it's a really great value car. The new run of 50-foot box cars are out, and there's a mix of, again, with running boards, without running boards. They've got a sliding door version, a plug door version, and just some classic. Boy, take a look at some of those road names, right? The Great Northern Big Sky Blue, that New York Central, and they look spectacular. And again, they retail for $30, so you can find them usually at a good price, even less at some of the bigger hobby shops.
I'm noticing them, and then I'm also noticing on their website, they did a train with all the Beatles albums on it.
Yes,
that's real. That'll, sometimes it's hard to catch my dad's attention when it comes to trains, but he's a massive Beatles fan. I might be able to catch his attention with this. Holy mackerel. There's all the albums, and that's neat. Amazing, this stuff.
I get pulled into those. It's usually always, those are the European prototypes, and that's under the actual Hornby name. And a lot of those are 00 scale, but that, of course, it runs on HO track. Like I have a yellow submarine. I don't know if it's still on their website. There's a yellow submarine Beetle set that's like it looks like one of the high-speed passenger trains, and the color and graphics on it is just amazing. I reviewed it sometime back in Model Railroad News, but there's a lot of Beatles stuff and Coca-Cola stuff. So yes, the collector in me, I've got stacks of some of that stuff sitting around the house. That it's fun stuff, and you can find all that. I think you Google Hornby Hobbies. It's hornbyhobbies.com, and they make everything. If you go through that, there's cars, there's slot cars, there's like a James Bond slot car set with like an Aston Martin. Hornby's got all sorts of stuff. So it's a fun site just to kind of click through and look. But yeah, hornbyhobbies.com is the North American site for that.
Definitely be checking that out.
And speaking of, we talked Northern Pacific before, the Northern Pacific Historical Society, I guess Rapido has so many new releases, they just don't have room to cover them all. And the Northern Pacific Society snuck out news on this drop bottom gondola, a few weeks back. And I have it coming up in the next Model Railroad News. And then Rapido did announce it. They also have a Northern Pacific day-nighter coach that's coming out. But this drop bottom gondola, they're going to bring it out in like the wood chip, I guess it is, version with the extensions on the side. But man, this is, there have been models of this car done before, and all of them are fairly intricate because they've got the panels that drop out in the bed. So there's a lot of different little, mechanical things along the side of the cars. I can't wait to see what Rapido does with their usual style of underframe detail and such. This car is going to be amazing. And I think Northern Pacific is its prototype. The Society has some exclusive cars, so definitely go and find their webpage to find out the others. And then Rapido has now announced the first release of the cars they'll have. But this should be a really finely done example of this very common car.
They've got some photos right on that link here for that car, and amazing photography here to capture all that detail underneath, including right on the trucks. All that raised lettering is just absolutely amazing how much detail they can get into with this.
It's incredible. And yeah, as I say, when I first saw it, I had sent the link back to Jordan at Rapido Trains, said, hey, the Northern Pacific Society has snuck a release out on you. He said, yeah, they got to talk about it first. He said, we'll have info soon. And as I say, it's up now, but yeah, take a look. Drop bottom gondolas coming in HO scale from Rapido. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about, this is HO scale. This is Viessmann. And this is part of, I told you that Ken Jr. and I had that international hobby show that we did a few weeks ago. You can find that if you go to Train World TV on YouTube. You can find the live stream shows are all stored there as well. And we talked to Knock and Faller, and then Viessmann has Keebry and the Volmer lines. And this car motion stuff, have you seen this? Have you seen videos of these?
I believe I have seen some YouTube videos on it, but I haven't seen this stuff for sale. So this is the first I'm actually getting to look at it on a for sale website.
These are the HO vehicles, and Viessmann it was Keebry tooling like trucks, made them so that they're motorized. They've got like headlights, taillights. They've got a figure in the cab. And they can run down streets on your model railroad, and you're thinking, oh, yeah, a slot car. No, not a slot car. I mean, well, yeah, the concept is kind of, but again, if you go and look at them on YouTube and bring up some of these car motion videos, it almost looks like it's a special effect because it's done with a magnet strip underneath your road. So the truck really literally looks like it's just piloting down a highway.
Right.
And they can turn, they can stop. They've got sensors in them. So if they come up behind another truck, they don't just run into it. They slow down. It's amazing. I've looked at, if you go to, there's on Viessmann's site does have English versions of some of the stuff. They are a site in Germany. But the car motion starter set has got a red truck. That's got all the lights, everything in it. The controller USB now recharges them. So you hook it up to a USB thing to charge the car. Just a fascinating system. And it adds so much because, again, going all, 50, 60 years ago, you would see where they would try to incorporate slot car track. And there's those sections of slot car track with, like the brass 9-inch railroad track cutting through it. And it's like, well, yeah, but no.
Yep.
But this truly is, I think, something that's really kind of a fascinating. You don't see it. It's under your roadbed, and yet they can pilot and run all around your railroad as if there's little people in the cars driving around your city or industrial site. Just incredible.
Oh, it's amazing. The stuff that, technology just continues to evolve, and the things that they're able to do, and, bringing more and more realism to a layout. And here's just another step up in that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, if you go the Viessmann side, there's an English language version of the manual, so you can kind of read up and figure it out. And this stuff will be imported into North America. We'll be seeing some of these sets and things soon. But wow, just a whole other aspect. You need to have vehicles running around on your railroad now.
Yeah, amazing. I also wanted to give a quick plug to HomeShops. I think between the time we talked last and then we didn't get to cover, they came out with their Pullman Standard 40-foot mini high cube boxcars. And I know I joked with you about trying to stretch them out to 50 feet, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows. And I got mine. I got the Cass County version of that, which is kind of a nod to Tom Johnson and the beautiful work that he's done on his layout. But outstanding in quality of car and just absolutely beautiful piece to have in a collection.
Oh, Chris at HomeShops, they're fantastic cars. They look great. Even though, yes, I know that's the first thing you said to me is this is neat, but I got to stretch it. But did you get any of the big high cubes?
Well,
he did the big high cubes too.
Well, he's done 86. He's done 40. So I'm hopeful that somewhere he'll finally fall in the middle and get some 50-foot high cubes going. he keeps winking at me about it, but no official announcement yet. So he's got me hopeful.
Yeah, those are amazing, wonderful collectibles, wonderful models to operate because Chris at HomeShops just picks top of the line stuff. I mean, the company or the manufacturers that he's associated with, Tangent, like Intermountain. I think he has some exact rail through scale trains coming.
Class
beautiful
1.
Cars.
Yeah.
That's right. He did the Depressed Center Class 1 car got done. But yeah, check that out. That's an amazing group of stuff at HomeShops.
For sure. Well, Tony, it's been great catching up on all the news, and I know we didn't cover it all, but we certainly can find out a lot more if we subscribe to Model Railroad News.
Oh, thanks for mentioning that. Yes, Model Railroad News every month, 100 pages. You can get it digitally through the White River app, which you can find, and of course, subscribe in print, shop.whiteriverproductions.com, and you can find out more on that. I also do Diesel Era, which is quarterly on prototype locomotives, and HO Collector, which is moving to an annual next year. So it'll be a 116-page annual for HO collecting.
Excellent. And then if we want to take a trip back through time, where do we go to do that?
Well, you can go to my modeltrainresource.com website, and I do have more pages coming online all the time. That was part of my old HO scale trains resource that goes back to 2000 is when I started that. That's there, and I try to keep news and kind of a what's in the box section where if I'm working on a new product, I take it out, and as I'm doing photography work, I do a quick share of a handful of pictures to kind of get an idea of what comes with, are there extra parts? Is there a DCC guide? That kind of thing. That a few pictures in the what's in the box section.
All right. So many ways to stay connected with the happenings in the model railroading. And of course, we'll be back next month with another guest and a fresh list of news that I'm sure will just keep pouring in. So until next time, Tony, thanks for coming by and sharing with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Ray. Always enjoy it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's show on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Around the Layout. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at patreon.com/Around the Layout podcast. Past episodes and more can be found on our website, aroundthelayout.com. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.